Good evening. My name is David Upton, and I have a large family. I'm a really fortunate man. I work with a talented and passionate group of people, loud group of people. And we collectively are trying to run 3 companies that's sole goal is to really try to change the world. And a number of those folks are here tonight, and I just want to say thank you for what you bring every day. So tonight, I'm not going to talk a lot about my businesses, the businesses that we all are trying to run, but there's 3 of them. Common Good Solutions exist to start and grow and connect social enterprises and to build an ecosystem to support that kind of mission-based work. So Social Enterprise Institute is an online learning system that's actively leveling the playing field between urban and rural, between the first world and the third, when it comes to accessing expert technical assistance and training and coaching on how to start businesses that have a mission. The Bisocial Canada company is building markets. It's working with governments and large corporations to slightly change their supply or their purchasing supply chains so that they can purchase from social enterprises that create jobs for the most marginalized people we have in our country. Our companies are partnered with national and regional and international organizations, nonprofits like the Social Enterprise Network of Nova Scotia that exists to advocate for the sector in Nova Scotia on a regional basis. With the Canadian Community Economic Development Network, we do this on a national basis, and the Social Enterprise World Forum, we're doing it in countries all over the world. I teach a course at the University of Fredericton, the Santa Barbara School of Business. I teach social enterprise in their MBA program. I'm a member of the Immigration, Refugees, and Citizenship Canada Social Innovation Committee, and I'm currently working on a project with the Canadian government and people from across the country to create policy around social innovation and social finance in Canada. So that's all I want to say about the businesses and our stuff, except that we're trying really hard and it's growing. What I wanted to talk about tonight was maybe a little bit more about the future, and I was really pleased to hear about, I think the future is a thing we need to spend a little bit more time talking about. So, okay, my wife said I shouldn't do this, but she's not here. So the folks down on the right, that's the whole CGS family and the bus for the documentary that 3 young people that work with us took across the country this year, shooting stories about the kind of work that's going on in every community in this country. Those other 4 fabulous people are my grandchildren. So my wife said my speech, I could use all the help I could get, and showing pictures of cute kids. I was going to throw a puppy in there, but I thought it'd be going too far. So I have 4 children, and I have 4 grandchildren. 2 of those kids are growing up in Nunavut. You can guess which 2. What I'm thinking about these days is I'm worrying about sort of the 21st century version of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. Led by poverty and climate change. I'm worried that that's going to steal the quality of life that I hope they have. So when I thought about the speech, I guess I want to start with our responsibilities as I see them as citizens. I don't know how to explain to someone how they should care about other people. Personally, I'm happy to pay 50 cents extra for a fast food burger if it means the person making it for me can afford to feed their family. I guess if you're not willing to fork over that extra little bit for that reason, then you're just a fundamentally different person than I am. If I have to pay a little bit more with each paycheck to ensure that everybody can access a working healthcare system, sign me up. A few years ago, there was a story in a local paper here about a homeless man who was living in a cardboard box. And the story talked about how the man had a dog that lived with him. The man, it was his sole friend, loved and cared for that dog. What struck me in the follow-up to that article was the number of letters and comments written on the online version of the newspaper bemoaning the plight of the poor dog. I don't know how to convince somebody how to experience the basic human emotion of empathy. But there's something screwed with our values when the uprise is all about the puppy. So I can't have another conversation with someone who is content to see other people suffer needlessly in exchange for a system that gives wealthier people advantages, mostly at the expense of the poor. I don't want to debate with anybody. I don't want to debate someone into caring about what happens to their fellow human beings. So the first point I'm going to make tonight, and first I'm going to start with a quote. Jane Austen said something. She said, "I was quiet, but I was not blind." I would suggest that most of us aren't blind, but a lot of us have been quiet. So my first recommendation, the one that I'm going to try to follow, is that we all commit to being better human beings. That we be present. That we less bystanding. And that we start to think about the fact that how we spend our money in our society right now largely defines who we are. I've always been proud to be a Canadian. You know, it's safe to say that being a Canadian has always had an element of, I don't know, we aren't exactly like Americans. You know, we flatter ourselves that we're kinder, we're funnier, sure as hell we're better hockey players. And often, you know, it comes from us being slightly envious of our bigger, snazzier Southern brothers and sisters. And I think this is the part that's important. We've always been a little bit smug because we like to think of ourselves as being more caring for those amongst us who are less fortunate. So spending some time preparing for this presentation caused me to think about that question and to question how much kinder and more caring we really were. In fact, you know, I wonder if we're not a little too quick to pat ourselves on the back. Here's an example. I'll give you, imagine if the residents of Bedford had unsafe drinking water for the past 20 years. Or their citizens there were struggling with extraordinary high levels of cancer. Or even that perhaps the infant mortality rate was sometimes rising up to third world levels. Imagine what the conversation we'd be having about that as Canadians. Today, there are 133 health advisories in place on 89 First Nations reserves, warning that the water is not safe to drink. We all know this. We all read the papers. 50 reserves have struggled with unclean drinking water for extended periods of time, sometimes for years. We're not measuring time in years here. So I travel quite a bit, and I'm always pleased to tell people I'm Canadian. And I badly want to be proud of my birth country, the country that helped launch the United Nations, whose citizens wrote the first draft of the UN Declaration of Rights, who gave insulin to the world. Our gift, Canada's gift to the world, is caring. We've been a beacon of hope, a sign that we all can be better. But I worry sometimes we've lost our way, that maybe we don't believe in our inherent goodness and that we started to lose that distinct caring characteristic that gave us our identity in the first place. So here's my second recommendation. All of us need to try to be better citizens. We have and should be demanding and expecting support from municipal, regional, provincial, federal governments to create initiatives that care for people who need to be cared for. It's not that we can't afford to do it, it's that we can't afford not to do it. It's the last piece, and I'm going to get in big trouble here, but because I'm running over. While my presentation today has been mostly about this, I really want to talk about business, and not about business. I want to talk about business as an extension of oneself. So sort of the notion of what I do is who I am. I don't think those things can be disconnected. I think the business is personal. It's personal for the people who work with me and with you. It's personal for the people who buy our products. It's personal for the communities in which we do business. It's very personal. So before I sound like too much of a tree hugger, I want to say that for the record, and I like tree huggers, I want to say for the record that I like profit. We work hard to make money. I like profit a lot. Profit is life as a business. People say all your energy must be focused on maximizing your return. You know, that you need to make a lot of money before you help anybody else. Well, I'm going to compare profit to two of my other favorite things. Good tequila and potato chips. So for those of you who might know me, there are a few things that I like better than a good glass of tequila. And I love potato chips. Standing between me and the potato chip bowl at a party, could be hazardous to your health. But imagine if from now on, I decided that because I love tequila and potato chips so much, I was only ever going to eat potato chips and drink tequila. I mean, I'd have tequila for breakfast, I'd wash down my potato chips at lunchtime with more tequila. I mean, it's a ridiculous notion. I worry that businesses fall into that same kind of trap, that profit as the sole motivation for a business is as unhealthy as potato chips and tequila would be for me. I know the arguments about how hard it is to make money. I've used a bunch of them, and I've lived more than one of them. But here's what I believe. I believe that business can be the change that the world needs. I believe that our planet's best chance for change is with business. And here's why. Smart, determined people run businesses. People who get things done, keep their eye on the ball, who don't quit easily. Those are the people who tend to be successful in businesses. And that's what we need right now. But businesses have to do better. The days of maximizing profits at the expense of people on the planet have to end. If a business can't pay a living wage to someone, it's not a sustainable business, period. If a business destroys part of the environment through the sale of its goods and services, it has to be held accountable and to pay for that. We must reward good behavior. So what we business owners do is hard, but so is working for $12 an hour. Business owners deserve a pension. That's been a lot in the news lately, because we all work pretty hard. I know I do. But our workers work pretty hard too, and they deserve the same benefit. So here's my last point. Business is personal. It's important to remember if you own a business that your values are constantly on display. And you want to try and make your kids proud when they know you run a business. So in conclusion, and I'm carefully not looking over there, our society needs all the parts working in sync to succeed. Citizens, governments, business, but we have to get in it. We have to. What can I do, and what can we all do is to commit to being better people, to being more involved citizens, to being better business operators, to be mindful of our workplace, to be mindful of the businesses we own and the ones we purchase from. Demand excellence, care more, try harder, and most importantly, try to be the person that you'd like other people to think that you are. Thank you.